So, hi everyone, I'm Puneet, and we have with us our guest speaker, Mr. Binod Shankar. So, today we are going to talk about, very important topics like why upskilling is required in the current scenario, and how to fill the skills gap that is there, and how people can, switch their industries and switch their profiles, job profiles, and how can people move to different countries, and what are the skills required over there, and such relevant questions. So we have with us the real finance mentor, Mr. Binod Shankar, and he is a chartered accountant and CFA charter holder. And he is a former executive director at a listed asset manager and worked over there for like 17 years. And then he quit that role and founded his own company, Genesis, which was later bought by K-Plan, if you're aware of that. So K-Plan is a very famous, a leader in financial publications, and for example, they prepare the shares and notes for CFA preparations. And Vinod has also been the export member of the CFA Society Emirates, and trained over 4,000 plus students of CFA candidates across all levels over the past 12 years. And he's one of the top financial mentors with us. And currently, he comes on and off on CNBC and Bloomberg. And he's a blogger, keynote speaker, startup mentor, podcaster, angel investor. So there are so many things that I'm sometimes, I'm getting confused because you've done so much in your life. So
We'll focus on a few things, right?
right. So it would be great, like if you could tell me if I've even missed out on something. So if something is not
That's
written on
fine.
these slides,
That's fine. It's okay.
right?
Right.
So right. So like anything that you would like to initiate from your side, like before we start the questions.
No, thanks, Puneet. First of all, I think great platform you have, and I loved your questions, and that shows that your experience and how in touch you are with the aspirations of youngsters, right?
Right.
You are a working professional yourself, so you fully appreciate and understand the issues. But I think the questions are fantastic,
Right.
and I could connect with them, and they're very relevant questions. And for the audience members, I mean, Puneet, of course, is the moderator, is the organizer of this discussion. Please type your questions on the. I think there's a chat box, right, Puneet, that they can type their questions in.
Yes, there's a chat box. I can type the question in the chat box, and I can take them up later on as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So after this session, after this Q&A is over, then Puneet can look at the chat box and pick questions, and we can discuss that as well. So please feel free to ask your questions. Let's make it as interactive and lively as possible. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Over to you,
So
Puneet.
right. So the first thing that I've been thinking about is like when I was in my MBA, and not just me. Like there's so many people who spend so much money. They spend lakhs and lakhs on their education for the graduation and the post graduation. But even after spending so much money, so much time, so many years of their education, they're unable to get good jobs. They're unable to get the jobs that they've been aspiring for. They've been studying for throughout the years. So like why is that happening?
Well, this is a $1 trillion question, Puneet, right? And it's something that I think about very often because people approach me for support, for jobs, for references all the time on LinkedIn, on Instagram, by email. I think there are quite a few reasons. It's just was not one reason, right? It's quite a few reasons. One reason why they fail to get jobs is their very poor job search strategy in terms of target sector, target companies, search approach, quite faulty, right? They don't know which sector to look at within that sector, which companies are ideally the good employers, and how do you exactly approach the employers? That's one issue, right? I would say poor job search strategy. Number two would be, and I've said this a lot, right? Poorly written cover letters and resumes, CVs. Um, Basically, they send generic resumes and cover letters, and irrespective of the job of the role, right? So they have what I call a pray and pray strategy. Yeah.
Right.
Um, that is not good, of course. Yeah, because then the person receiving those resumes would just not pay attention to it because it's not really addressed to that role. Um, the third point is, and this is a big issue, right? Most youngsters, graduates, postgraduates, chartered accountants, CFA charter holders, CFA candidate, doesn't matter. They don't know how to network and establish and maintain relationships, right? So because they're so focused on the technical side, and we talk about that as well, and never had exposure on the relationship side, they don't know how to approach people, how to ask questions, how to engage with people. They're very crude, right? And they'll just send you CV saying, "Please get me a job," or "Can you get me a introduce me to this person?" And I would not know the person from Adam, right? The person asking me. So that's something that they need to learn a lot, because emotional intelligence and soft skills are very important even at a young age, right? The fourth point I see is, especially among people who are doing the CA or FRM or CFA, overemphasis on qualifications and simultaneously underrating the technical and soft skills side. What do I mean by that? They're very good academically, right? They can pass exams like this, right? CFA level 1, 2, 3, CA, all those exams. But they don't know about the technical side of it. So if you ask them to do evaluation or run a financial model, they probably can't do it properly.
Right. So their system is, I mean, what they're being taught is more of theoretical and not of practical.
Correct. And that was my next point, right? Very bookish. They have a lot of bookish knowledge. They memorize a lot of stuff, but really not application oriented, right? At all. And then the last 2 points, but not the least by far, is poor presentation and interviewing skills, right? Which is connected to what I said earlier about networking and maintaining relationships. Basically, they don't know how to present themselves. They don't know how to have the confidence to interview properly with the recruiter, how to establish a rapport. And all this, Puneet, basically means, if you basically add up all this: cover letters, resumes, lack of poor networking or lack of networking, overemphasis on qualifications, lack of technical soft skills, poor presentation, interviewing skills. All this basically means that when they go to interview, or even before interview, when they reach out to a recruiter, they are not impressive and they don't stand out. Now, when you have
Absolutely.
thousands of people applying for the job, and last time I checked in Mumbai, it was like 2 years ago, right? There were 5,000 people applying for one financial analyst position, right? Now, that's a 5,000 to 1 ratio. And if you don't stand out, you are lost, you're finished. So I think excellent question to start off this session, by the way. And we probably repeat some of these themes later during the discussion.
Like, there are some questions that are related to this, and I'll keep on asking about them as well.
Sure.
Right. So as we know that you've been in industry for over 2 decades now, and
Right.
so like what would you say, like what has changed over the past few years in the financial services industry?
Well, that's a big question, Puneet, and a lot of changes have happened, right? But let me address it more from the employment, career, qualifications perspective, right? So when I was doing my CA, 3 decades ago, or when I was doing my CFA 2 decades ago, a CA or MBA or a CFA would have been enough to get you into equity research or asset management or investment banking, right? So, and of course, in those days, it was basically CA or MBA, right? We're talking about 80s and 90s. Now, CFA and FRM are becoming more popular and required. But what I'm seeing is the specialization is increasing. Now, in certain roles, they require a master's in finance, which is more advanced than CFA or FRM or anything else, where you go into computational finance or algorithmic trading or financial engineering, where you need to know things like maths and stats and coding and financial modeling quite well. So I think that's one thing I've seen changing, where some qualifications are now taken as standard. You need to have a CA or a CFA anyway to get into certain
Right.
areas.
Right.
But then they'll ask you, okay, what else do you have?
Exactly.
That's one thing I've seen. Secondly, of course, obviously, right? Obviously, you're in India. Competition has increased a lot. Like an example of 5,000 people applying for one financial asset analyst position. And now with COVID and the economic situation and everything else, you're finding that there are fewer jobs out there with more people looking for jobs. That's
Right.
another big, that's a big thing as well, right? But on the positive side, in a way, I can say that, certain industries are doing well. Like wealth management is doing brilliantly globally, right? There are many new millionaires being created every day, right? If you look at it that way.
Right.
And whether it's India or China or Russia or UAE or US. And that gives a lot of opportunities because they have to have their money managed, right? So wealth management is becoming quite a big industry globally, right? In Dubai, for example, it's huge. Um, and the last point I want to make is automation and AI, artificial intelligence, are becoming more prominent, right? And you can already see the effect of that in industry. Algorithmic trading is picking up a lot. Sentiment analysis using AI to go through mass amount of data to pick up patterns in equity research, for example. So you have faster systems, more accurate systems with, and this is very important, right? No inherent bias, emotional or cognitive.
Right.
So now that sounds like a challenge, but it is a challenge. And you will think, okay, how do people compete? And I would say people have to compete with the things that a machine can't do. A machine can't communicate, visualize, empathize. You know what I'm saying, right? Lead,
Exactly.
manage. These are uniquely human skills, at least as of now. Huh? You never know. Maybe in 20 years from now, machines may start doing all these things. But as of now, we rule, right? And goes back to my answer to your first question. Soft skills become even more important.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So that was, very insightful. Like you've been telling about like what, happened over the past few years and like
Hmm.
exactly true. And so my next question is, so what are the skills that are high in demand these days, and like what do you think that will be in demand in the times to come? So, for example, if we talk about the current scenario, so what do you think? Like it's very demand areas, as you mentioned, wealth management. So, what apart from wealth management, and what do you think like in the times to come will happen? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent question, Puneet. Yeah. So instead of going into too much detail into each sector, I'll refer to what writer Yuval Noah Harari wrote a few years ago, right? In one of his best-selling books, and it's something that's recurring theme as well. There are four themes, right? Four skills that I think, and he also thought that are becoming increasingly important with automation and the complexity of today's world, right? And the four are communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. It's easy to remember, four C's, right? And I deliberately put communication at the front because, in my mind, that's probably the most important of all. Communication skills, that means not just negotiation skills or presentation skills, but also persuasion skills, the ability to convince people, and also listening skills. But because people are good at talking a lot, but not very good at listening.
so true.
And if I look at my career, right, forget everything. If I look at my career over the last 3 decades, and I see how I got jobs, how I grew in my jobs, how I switched from corporate to entrepreneurship, how I succeeded in entrepreneurship. Yes, of course, analytical skills, CA, CFA, IQ all helped, obviously. But what really helped my case was communication, right? Command over the language, which I had even in my teens. And that was something that propelled me because then you can convince people, you can connect with people, people come and talk to you, people want to communicate with you. So that's number one in my view, communication. Number two would be collaboration. Now collaboration is simply teamwork. Again, something that a lot of people lack in because people want to do everything on their own and they hate delegating stuff, right?
Right.
Like Puneet might think, you know what, I am the superstar in risk management. I'm not going to get any bakra get in my way and spoil my reputation. Right?
Right. These things
And
happen.
right, because only you can do it properly. Um, the problem is that because you don't trust people. I'm not saying you, right? I'm just saying generally.
I got it. Yeah.
Because people don't trust other people, they don't delegate. And because you don't delegate and you don't trust people, there's no teamwork. So that is a big area too that technical people should work on, right? Especially finance professionals. Um, Third one would be creativity, and by that I mean not painting something or drawing something or or composing music. Creativity, I mean, for example, in finance, think of new models and frameworks in asset management or wealth management or whatever. Think about new ideas, new policies, and the fourth C would be critical thinking. And if I dig into that in more depth, I would say critical thinking in my mind means challenging assumptions. I mean, every day we work on the basis of lots of assumptions, right? What we call conventional wisdom, tradition, whether in a personal life or professional life. And we rarely challenge those because we think, you know what, there must be a reason why these exist. Someone very clever must have thought about it. And if I look around me, everyone is following this assumption anyway. So why challenge it? And I think that's uh, difficult. It requires you to be gutsy and bold, but it's absolutely essential because without critical thinking, you can't achieve breakthroughs. You can't be innovative. You can't be inventive. You
Right.
can't stand out, right? You'll just be part of the crowd. So the
Exactly.
four C's, Puneet, would be communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical
Critical
thinking.
thinking.
Whichever field you are in, hugely applicable, I think.
Right. Great. So I can relate like these to Elon Musk, who has been following all the four. So that's the first person who came into my mind. Okay, so he's been following all the 4 points, and yeah, he's
Correct.
a really successful person now. So like the next question that I would ask you is like, so the most important question, like how can people fill the skills gap? As you know that there's a huge gap, as I referred to in the first question, that when people are getting graduated, they're doing the post graduation, they just getting the skills. So, but like how can they fill the skills gap that is still required? Like the industry is requiring something, but they're qualified, but I mean there's still a gap. What is actually required by the industry? So how can they fill that gap?
It can't be done, Puneet. It's impossible. I'm just kidding.
I know.
No, I'm just pulling your leg. No, no. There are many popular, tested, valid methods of filling the gap, right? And if you have a gap, guys, I mean, people listening to this or the recording, don't worry. There are many ways of doing it. So let me list out a few things that I find relevant, right? And Puneet, you can add as well if you think anything else is more,
Right,
is valid.
sure.
Number one would be learning by doing. I mean, nothing really beats experience, right? I mean, whether it is accounting or audit or risk management or equity research or financial modeling, nothing, you don't learn to any other method more than by doing it yourself. That's when you realize that, oh, this is how it's done. This is not how it's done. This is a mistake that people make. And that this learning by doing is obtained mainly by joining the workplace, right? Getting work experience under your belt. And we'll talk about that later as well. There's another point of views on that. That's number one. Number two, thankfully these days, you have WhatsApp, YouTube, Facebook, podcast. I mean, Google is, of course, everyone's friend. You don't have a lack of information, right? Uh, when I grew up, when I was in my teens in my college CA, we didn't have access to any of this, right? And you were literally cut off from the rest of the world unless you were living in New York or London or Mumbai or something, right? Which I wasn't, of course, or even a big city. So listen to podcasts. I mean, for example, the podcast that I started 2 years ago was deliberately meant to be almost like a virtual mentor, a very niche podcast aimed at financial careers. It's called the Real Finance Mentor, and at the risk of sounding like, no, I'm a sales guy for the website and podcast, I'm not really. I think it's a very important podcast, not meant for the general crowd, but meant for people doing the CFA, FRM, CFA, or or CE or MBA or whatever, right? Check it out. There's a YouTube channel, and there are quite a few other YouTube videos and podcasts as well that might help you, right? Go to Spotify or Stitcher, whatever, right? The third way would be, and this again, thanks to technology, it's widely available, right? Attend online courses. On what? Well, pretty much any area that you think might be relevant for you, might result you being upskilled, that might make you stand out when you apply for a job. Financial modeling, data science, Python coding, whatever. I mean, there's so many platforms right out there with decent quality, low cost, allows you to learn on at your own pace, right? There's Udemy or Coursera, and there is Corporate Finance Institute and Wall Street Prep. I mean, I could go on and on, right? And they've all come up in the last 5, 10 years. And the last point, the fourth point, or fourth way to fill the gap would be mentoring, get relevant mentors. Now we could spend another 1 hour, Puneet, talking about the
And that,
do's.
that point is really important. Like having mentors is
Yeah,
something really important because people spend too much time in learning random things and then they end up just wasting their time and efforts. So having a mentor is really important so that a person can guide them. Okay, this is what needs to be done. And although people might find okay, this some videos are already available on YouTube, but how would they know that this is to be this is important for them to watch?
yeah.
So there needs to be a mentor to guide them. Okay, this needs to be done. You can do this; it's for free, but this needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think mentoring is a whole subject on its own, Puneet. And you're right, a lot of information out there, but how do you know what's for me, right?
Exactly.
So I do post on LinkedIn regularly, as you know, on Instagram as well. So I do give some tips here and there. But ultimately, you have to find your mentor, right? You have to, ideally, if you're working somewhere, maybe your boss or your boss's boss or your colleague or someone next department, right? Or someone known in your family, just connect to someone who is experienced. The key word here is experience, right? And you don't want to reinvent the wheel. I keep telling people, please don't reinvent the wheel. Please don't make the same mistake that other people have made before you. That's complete waste of time, right? Just don't do that. So I think that's my and mentoring. You need to know how to approach mentors. Very, very important, right? I get dozens of messages every week, people asking me, can you be my mentor? That's not the way it works, guys. You don't go to a person and say, can you be my friend? You wouldn't do that, right? Oh, you can do it, but it'll sound very weird. Right? We do
Right. Right.
that. You don't go. So you basically, you connect to the person, watch what the person is doing, maybe then share with the person some things, develop a relationship, a rapport, right? For example, send the person interesting information, ask the person about advice on upskilling, for example, or employability or qualifications. Um, and only then, and that could take months or even years, I don't know, right? Depends. Do you go and say, could you be my mentor? And even then, the person might say no, because that mentors are normally very busy people, right? They're normally
Absolutely.
highly senior, very busy people. And I personally would love to mentor, but I'm very picky in who I mentor. And I have to be, because I want to mentor someone who has the ability and the aptitude. And like I keep saying in my LinkedIn post, right? Who's got the rocket fuel, which is the attitude, who's got the rocket engine, which is the ability, and just needs the GPS navigation system to guide the rocket to the destination, which is me, the mentor, right?
Right. Right.
If someone comes and say, boss, I have a shell, please give me the engine and please find the fuel for me and install the GPS, who knows, not going
That's
to
not
work.
possible. That's not possible. Right. So people have to put in their efforts as well. They can just expect someone else to do everything for them. So it's just like spoon feeding, and that's not possible
Yeah, in
for
fact,
people.
I was talking to somebody the other day, and she have a charter holder, and she was saying somebody came to her and said, "Please find me a job." so, so that's like outsourcing your entire career to a stranger.
Right.
Yeah, that's an extreme, of course, but that's I think some people should take responsibility for their careers, and then they will automatically find help.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Great. So, and this question has been, I've been getting this question from the people on my Instagram. So they keep on texting me like how can I get good internships? So I've been applying on various platforms on LinkedIn and like Internshala and so many internship platforms, but I'm
yeah,
unable to get an internship. So sometimes I'm not able to have a look on everyone's CVs, look at everyone's CVs, but I had a look at some of the CVs. So what I found was that as you mentioned, that the CVs are not good enough.
hmm.
So people have been applying at various positions, so they might know the skills, but they do not even know the basic thing of how to write things on the CV, how to mention those things on the CV. But still, suppose if someone mentions those things on the CV, and as you mentioned, like there are so many people applying for very few profiles. So suppose there are just five, six job positions open, and hundreds and thousands of people are applying for that. So how can people stand out and get good internships and good jobs in such a scenario?
Yeah, this is a burning question, right, Puneet? Like you said, because uh, when you are internship stage, you're probably a fresh graduate, and that automatically means you have had no experience on your CV, right? And that means you have no brands on your CV apart from where you went to college. So it's quite a challenge. But of course, there are always solutions, right? Um, but it goes back to the question why people struggle to get jobs. The first question you asked me. And the reason why people struggle to get jobs And the reason why people struggle to get internships, there's a lot of overlap. And the reason is most people simply don't stand out. Now, here's my advice, because I have taught lots of CFA candidates, right, over the last 15 years. And lots of them are fresh graduates, and many of them went on to get internships. And of course, they've moved on in their careers now, right? So I've been watching them and thinking what they do and what they don't do, and how some of them succeed and some of them, take longer to succeed. And here's my advice for you, right? Even if you're a fresh graduate with zero experience, there are many things you can do. Number one, you must be on LinkedIn, right? Now, if you're talking to us today, you're probably on LinkedIn anyway.
Right.
But I think the majority of graduates are not on this professional networking platform. And if
So even though they are there, but they're not active.
they're not active, exactly. In fact, we'll come to that
Right.
point. I think that's one of your questions coming up later, right? Leveraging. I think you need to be on LinkedIn. And people tell me, no, I'm not on social media. I'm not an Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook person. I said, screw all that, right? This is not social media. This is actually a professional networking site where if you want to be seen, you must be not only present, but also active, like Puneet said. Right? Number two, way of standing out as an intern or to get internships. You must focus on your academic achievements in college. So if you are in college and did well, got a scholarship or on the dean's list or honors list, or got a GPA of 3.99 out of 4 or something, please highlight that in your resume, because you don't have experience, remember. And the substitute you have for experience is academic achievement. So don't forget that part. Okay. Number three, again, going back to college, you must try and get recommendations from your professors. Now, this, of course, is if you've been a good boy or a girl in college, right? If you've been bunking classes, cutting classes, and you had mediocre performance in college, I doubt whether your professor would recommend you. But if you did well in college, most professors would be happy to help their former students progress in career and life. Get written recommendation from your professors and ask them to recommend you on LinkedIn, so that everyone can see it, right?
Right. Even I did that. Like the chairperson of my institute for my MBA.
Right. Yeah.
So I texted her, ma'am, like, would you like to recommend me on LinkedIn? She said, yeah, I would be happy to do that. And she wrote me a very, very nice recommendation on LinkedIn. So yeah.
Did you deserve that nice letter, Puneet, or was it?
Yes, sir. I've worked so hard for the past few years. I hope
No, I'm
so.
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I know, but yeah.
Yeah. This is why I keep saying, don't piss off your professors, right? In college or
Right.
MBA. I mean, seriously, in class, be interactive, be engaged. After you leave college, keep in touch, because it's a small world and what goes around comes around, right?
Right. I still talk to my professors, on and off. Like, I've been in touch with them because they've taught me so many things, and I still keep learning. For example, if I get stuck in my, job or something, so if I need any advice, and I feel okay, this person can help me out.
Yeah.
So I do call them. Okay, like, sir, this was a problem that I was facing. Like, what would be your advice on it? And
Correct.
ma'am, okay, this was something that I would like your advice on this thing. So they're always happy to help, and it helps in keeping in touch with them.
Yeah,
Also.
actually, it's a very important point you raised now, because professors are not just teachers, right? They also probably have involvement with alumni associations and things like that. And a lot of alumni of the college may have gone on and been senior places. That can be helpful for you. So you may not know the senior alumni or alumnus of your college, but your professors may know them, and they may be in touch with them, right? And
Absolutely.
one day your professor might say, you know what, I think I think you deserve some help, and this guy who I know working in Barclays or HDFC or Kotak, let me give him a ring, or let me send him an email. So
Right.
very, very important. So they actually act as mentors in a way, Puneet. Professors sometimes take that role on, right? So that's my fourth point, right? My fifth point would be what a fresh graduate can do would be, when you graduate, you're academically accomplished, right? Hopefully, but you're not. You don't have skills. You don't have technical skills most of the time. Not post graduation, but when you graduate, right? Whether it's a BBA or BA or BCom or whatever, right? So what I suggest is learn some skill. Going back to what we talked about, right? Online courses, high quality online providers. One skill that is in significant demand at entry level across many sectors, and I see that a lot in the UAE, is financial modeling. advanced Excel, and financial modeling. Because Excel, thanks to its versatility, is used almost everywhere. I'm sure you use it a lot in financial in risk
Right.
management as well, right, Puneet?
Right. Right.
So
Basic necessity, like everyone needs it on a daily basis.
exactly,
Right.
it's like food, air, water, and Excel, right?
That's so true.
I mean, given the fact some people actually sleep, eat, and drink Excel, right? They are so good at it, right? Yeah, so you need to know that. And last point, you must approach internship seriously, right? Almost as though it's a job search. So if you go to a company and say, "So I want to intern in the company," you should be able to answer like, "Why do you want to intern in that sector, in that company? What do you like about that company and that sector? And importantly, what do you want to learn from that department or that role? Don't just say, you know what, I just want to do some internship for 6 months and cello after that I'll try it. I'll use it as stepping stone to go somewhere else. Even that, if that's your ambition or objective, don't say that. So approach it with as serious an intent as though it's a job search. So my what do you call my 6 points would be: beyond LinkedIn, focus on academic achievements and publicize that. Get recommendation from professors. Um, have some skills like financial modeling, approach internship seriously. And one more point before I forget, have some relevant extracurricular activity. Now, when I said relevant,
Right.
that's very important. Like surfing the web and video gaming, and being a TikTok star may not qualify as relevant extracurricular activity.
Relevant. Right.
What employers would like to see in finance, okay, in investing, whatever, would be like debating. Have you been to competitions like the CFA Research Challenge, which is popular throughout the world?
Right.
You've been in debating, or an evaluation contest, or even have you been part of a team? Have you been involved in team sports? Now you think, what is so important about team sport? It's very important because team sports obviously helps build teamwork, apart from physical fitness, negotiation, right? Leadership. I mean, it's actually something that a lot of recruiters look at, funnily enough, whether you have been in this kind of activities. I know one recruiter who told me a few years ago, he specifically looks for team sports in the CVs, and if he sees that, he interviews the person right away. Whether he hires him or not, or her or not, is something else altogether, of course. So there's 6 points I would. So yeah, so as an intern, you're not lost, you're not helpless at all. You do have lots of, as a fresh graduate, you do have a lot of way of standing out in the market.
Right. And I would also like to add one point to it. Like people, sometimes they feel like, okay, if a company is offering stipends, so that might be a good internship to do. And if they're not offering a good stipend, or if they're just, not giving any stipend, so that is a good, opportunity to intern with. So I always, advise them like this is not the way you should approach internships. You should look for what they are going to, what's going to be a job profile, what are you going to do over there. So while you're learning, you should not be focused about the stipends, because I mean it's just like 5,000 or 10,000 at max, like maybe 50,000. But this is the stage that on which you just you should focus on your learning, not on the money at this stage at least, because if you learn the right skills, then you will be paid in lakhs and maybe crores in the years to come. But if you just
Yeah.
focused on which internship you're going on and just on the basis of the stipend you're offering, so that is a really bad choice. I mean, as far as I feel.
Yeah, agreed. With a caveat, Puneet, because India being India, right? I can't compare to other countries, but some people want just to get into a job and earn money, right? Because of financial hardship or family issues or whatever. So that's something that has to be considered. But if that is not there, you are right, 100%. You should not be focusing on how much you're getting paid as an intern. You must be focusing on who are you working with and what are you learning.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Right. So yeah, so this question I also got. I mean, when I posted the poster on Instagram, so one of my friends posted this, and she asked me, okay, please ask this question to Vinod sir, and I was like, okay, I'll do that for sure. So this question was like, how can people switch their job profile? For example, someone started working in a different job profile in finance, because finance is a wide area. There are tens and twenties. I mean, there's so many things that people can do in finance. Suppose someone started off as an accountant but wants to be into investment banking. So how can they switch? Someone started off as an investment banker and wants to work in corporate finance, like and even in a private equity firm. So how can they switch profiles in the finance industry?
Wow, this is a tough one, huh? Because and it's also a question I get quite often from my former students and others. And the most common switch I see are people who are in accounting or auditing, right? Or compliance or risk, wanting to switch to investment banking or asset management, the buy side or sell side, whatever, right? They see that as more lucrative or sexier or whatever. Uh, it's not impossible. It depends on quite a few factors. So let me tell you what I have learned in the last many years, right? Mentoring people and watching people progress. Number one, a qualification helps. Getting a CA or a MBA or a CFA or a FRM, whatever the relevant qualification is for that role that you're looking at, it definitely helps. But having said that, let me give some caveats, right? The older you get, the more difficult it becomes, even if you're qualified. Even if you have passed all three levels of CFA, first attempt, blah, blah, blah. If you're in your 30s or whatever, right? Late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, and you're trying to switch from accounting to investment banking, it's going to be very difficult, right? Very difficult because people prefer to hire younger, right? Not someone who is in their late 20s or 30s, for example, right? Um, Having said that, if you want to jump into investment banking specifically, right? Specifically, then there is no better route than getting a master's in finance or an MBA from a reputed college. And that's something that I have to tell everyone. CFA, CA may not help you that much at all. What will help you is a good brand name on your CV, a college, and the campus placement that comes along with that brand. So that's my advice for anyone looking at, or consulting. If you want to work in consulting or investment banking, then this is what you should do, right? Certifications are not that valuable there in those areas. Number 2 point would be adjacent moves are easier than big moves. Adjacent moves, nearby moves are easier than far away moves. What do you mean by that?
Right.
Trying to move from auditing to transaction support in a big four firm. What do you mean by transaction support? Like due diligence, right? Financial due diligence. Trying to move from auditing to transaction support in a big four firm may be more successful, more likely than trying a big jump or bigger jump from auditing to consulting or auditing to advisory in the same big four firm.
Right.
Because auditing and transaction support are adjacent areas, and I have done both when I was in Big Four. You have a talent pool of people who have the same required skills, but auditing and consulting are very different skill sets, right? And advisory are very different skill sets. So I would say make some adjacent moves and move slowly towards and gradually towards your target, right? So maybe move from auditing to transaction support, then from transaction support to advisory, then advisory to consulting. Maybe that. Now that will take longer, of course, right? The faster way, of course, is to get a master's or MBA and go directly into consulting. But if you're a chartered accountant, you're already in auditing, and you can't or won't do an MBA, then try this route, and it might work, right? Point number 3 would be moving within a big company or bigger company or group within may be easier than moving outside a company. What do you mean by that? If you're working in EY, PwC, KPMG, Deloitte, or big group or big industrial company or Reliance or whatever, and and there are opportunities within the group, they normally are, or within that brand, it's better to move within in terms of changing departments or changing locations. Mumbai, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, UK, whatever. Because see, you know the company, you know the culture, you know the openings, right? You know the practices, and they know you. So you know them, they know you. Unless you have screwed up at work and or your boss is a complete jerk or it's a very toxic work culture, which happens, right? Then of course it's difficult. But otherwise, try that first before you go out and search. When you go out and search, you're in a different world, you're in a universe searching for the same job with hundreds of thousands of others. And you're no different from them, right?
Right.
But in your company, you are different. It's your territory, right? And last point, how does someone switch from one job profile to another, Puneet, would be network like crazy. Because someone has to like you and believe in you to hire you despite your lack of experience or qualifications, right?
Right, exactly. Like I've seen some people, like in fact, one of the person I know, he's a great friend of mine. So he's working as a vice president of technology, and is of finance, right? So he worked as a financial analyst in the similar roles, and when he was working in that company, so he had interest in IT, and someone overheard him like talking about IT, and they asked him, okay, would you like to be in my team? And he gradually, progressed to be the vice president in
There you
that
go.
domain.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know of some other connection of mine, quite a few connections of mine on LinkedIn, my former students, quite a few cases who didn't have the qualifications, didn't work in the sector, but they networked like crazy, kept on sending emails to the right people. And you have to be super persistent as well. I have to add this, if you just send out an email and expect a reply, or if you don't get a reply, you just leave it there, you're going to fail. You've got to be super persistent because you will be rejected many times when you're trying to make this jump. So you got to be, and you got to
Right.
convince the recruiter that, you know what, yes, I know I don't have the qualifications or all the experience or all what you're looking for, but listen, I'm very passionate about the sector, and this is what I've done, the work I've done in my free time, the valuation report or the Excel spreadsheet I've prepared. Please have a look at it and tell me how I can improve and how good I am and whether I can get an interview.
Right. So this is very important for all those who can't do MBA. I mean, as you mentioned, so but they still want to switch. So networking is the key in current scenario, I
Correct.
guess.
So I think, going back to again what we talked about, right? The theme keeps coming up: communication, negotiation, right? Presentation skills, networking skills, the soft skills, right?
Right.
It keeps popping up in almost every scenario in career, right? Or every situation in careers, right? So the four pieces of advice I'll have for you, switching from one job to another: get a qualification, try and change when you're young, because when you're older it becomes more difficult. Try and make an adjacent move, try and move within your group or company, and network, and be super persistent.
Right. Thank you so much for this advice. And the next question that we have is like, as you moved from India to Dubai, I mean UAE, and people would like to move from India to US or to any other country, maybe Australia or any other country. So
Sure.
when they want to move to a country, and how can they get to know what are the skills that are in demand over there, and what I mean related to the skills that they have already, and how can they learn new skills, and how can they get a job in a country that they wish to go.
Right. So let's take example of CFA, right? And that's a very important example, very relevant example here. So if you are a CFA institute member or a CFA charter holder, you're part of a big network of about 100 and 20,000 charter holders around the world, in about 150 societies, or 150 locations around the world, right? Whether it's in Canada, US, Japan, Kenya, Nigeria, India, wherever. So I always urge people: if you are if you're qualified to become a member, which means you need to have 3 years experience or whatever, right? Get the membership. Which means that if you're sitting in Mumbai or Delhi or Calcutta or wherever, and you want to move to say UAE, or you want to move to Canada or UK, contact society directly, right? Attend their events online, network with them, probably offer to become a volunteer, right? And that's the best place of meeting fellow professionals. If you're a chartered accountant, connect to CA chapters overseas. So, International Chartered Accountants of India has chapters in many cities around the world, and I'm sure they have networking events even online, right, these days. So I think that's the one very good way, one easy way, one effective way of connecting to people. And of course, professionals, again, if you connect with them properly and if you engage with them and build a relationship with them, going back to the soft skills, they'll open up and tell you, listen, this is what you should do. These are the good jobs here, good sectors here. These are skills you must have. This is how you should apply, things like that, right? That I think that is my single biggest advice as a finance professional, because I've seen how it helps people move from Dubai to Hong Kong or Dubai to Singapore. And a lot of people have left Dubai and gone to Canada, right? And I've seen how it has helped them as well, because they have joined the local society in Toronto, Vancouver, wherever, and even engaged with CFA charter holders in Canada well before they left Dubai or Abu Dhabi, right? For Canada.
But suppose like not if someone is not a CFA charter holder or not into using who has not done CFA but maybe some other qualification. So what would be the advice to them?
So typically in many countries, if it's immigration, they have immigration agencies, right? Immigration bodies and agencies. I know for Canada has it. is a very robust agency which helps people relocate. You can reach out to them and say, you know what, whom should I talk to, right, in this sector, and they might help you, right, because they're always trying to get skilled, talented immigrants on board. That's one way of doing it. And of course, the very obvious way of doing it is just Google, right? Find out, more about jobs. I mean, everything's available online these days, almost everything. So then that's the better way of finding out more about overseas location.
Right. And okay, so this is the question that I was waiting for. Like, it's really important. Like, how can people leverage social media and network to get a job? Like, and I mean, not just to get a job, maybe for various things. So, networking is really important, but people just, they just add connections, but they don't know how to talk to them. They don't even text them. They just have it over there. They don't even comment on someone's post, and I mean, what's the use of such connections if you do not even know how to network? And some people just add people randomly on LinkedIn who are not even related to their profiles. For example, someone who is into finance, he's just adding some IT guys in their profile just for nothing, like, because they had to send requests and had more connections. So they won't be having any use of those connections later on. They won't be
Correct.
talking to them. So what's the use of such networking? I mean,
Puneet, to be honest, this is like a billion-dollar question that needs its own Insta live session.
I hope you could come live on Instagram. Like, I would love that.
Or it needs its own separate Zoom session, in a way.
Right.
Um, yeah, it's a point I've actually posted about it quite a few times on LinkedIn and Instagram. How to connect and engage on LinkedIn, right? Because I get now it's far less because I know it's very clear. I put out the message out there, and now it's far less. But over the last 5 years, I've got many messages saying, "This is my CV." No, I don't know the person from Adam, right? This is my CV. Can you please find me a job in Dubai? Or can I have a call with you about? Can we have a chat about opportunities in the UAE? Or can you please tell me how to pass CFA exams? Completely out of the blue, right? I don't know the person apart from the fact that we are connected. But then I'm connected to about 37,000 people, right? It doesn't mean I know each person. Obviously, you can't. So this is my advice, and something I've repeated off and on. So I don't think it's completely new coming from me. We talked about LinkedIn. Of course, you must be on LinkedIn, but it's not about just about being on LinkedIn, right? It's also the how are you on LinkedIn, right? Firstly, create an attractive profile. Have a good photographs. I've seen people with blurred photographs, informal photographs, photographs of them hanging out somewhere in some what do you call it, casual place or something. Photo of them standing far away. You can't even make out whether the person is, whether it's an animal, vegetable,
Right.
a Republican or Democrat, whatever. So get the photo right because people click on photos, right? Let's face it,
Right.
we love images, right? Get a good photograph, okay, and don't be stylish about it. Don't try to be Hrithik Roshan or it's not really required. Just have a professionally taken photograph. Number two, your about description, be concise, and don't write hype and stuff like finance enthusiast and aspiring equity analyst and that kind of thing. Like I said recently on my on my LinkedIn post, right? Doesn't mean jack, right? It's
Right.
about what you do. And your education, again, be careful how you put your education. Sometimes people put, I am Ahmedabad, I am Bangalore, right? You've seen that, right, Puneet, in their profiles.
Exactly. Right.
And then you, and you scroll down and you see that this guy went to an IIM Ahmedabad executive education course 5 years ago, which is pretty much a 3-day course.
Right.
Now, that is downright misleading.
Exactly.
So don't do things like that.
People
And
even
even
do,
yeah,
they add, for example, their universities on Coursera. So
yeah,
people add, like, I did this from Harvard University in their bio.
correct.
I mean, in their about
Yes,
on LinkedIn. And it's like an online course of 1 month, and they're mentioning about Harvard and Stanford on
right.
LinkedIn.
No, I see where they're coming from. Let's be fair. I see where they're desperate to stand out,
Right.
and they want to stand out, and they have to stand out, but they don't know how to stand out,
Right.
right? And like you said, yeah, it's the Coursera, Harvard, all this. So put legitimate education, and even how you put it is has to be careful. Because CFA Institute is very picky as to how you state the way you pass level 1, level 2, level 3 on your LinkedIn profile. And if you have done your CFA exam, you know about it. Your experience, put down your experience briefly, where you worked, what did you do, from what to what did you achieve briefly, right? And like we talked about intern, right? Get recommendations from your ex-colleagues, ex-bosses, from mentors, things like that, right? Another point was what Puneet said earlier, right? Invite relevant connections, right? Don't just invite some random IT or graphic artist or whatever, right? Graphic designer. Doesn't make sense. Then comes this tricky part. All this actually is quite easy, right? Puneet, setting up a profile photo is straightforward. But what people should be doing, apart from this, is like posting regularly on LinkedIn. So I think maybe 99% of people are on LinkedIn. Of the people on LinkedIn, don't post regularly on LinkedIn.
Right.
Maybe 99.99, right?
Right.
uh, Post regularly on career specific topics. Now, some people say, that I don't know whether people will like it. Some people might think I'm not good enough. I say, so what do you lose, right? I mean,
Exactly.
you post something, no one's going to come and knock on your door. As Puneet, why did you post that on
Exactly.
LinkedIn day first today
Exactly.
morning? You're fired. So, I mean, so
That's true.
why do you give a
It's
damn
your, it's,
about
I mean, it's your account. You can write and post whatever you want. Like, why are you so scared about the opinions of people?
So this is Deshi mindset sometimes, right, Puneet? Log kya kahenge, right?
Right.
And that can be quite toxic and quite destructive. And we'll have
Right.
another session on that topic later. But
Right. Sure.
but again, don't worry about this. Post it slowly, a few lines, maybe twice a week. Make it thrice a week, 4 times a week, and before you know it, you'll trust me. You start getting a following. People will start liking your posts, maybe commenting on the post, and picks up. That's how everyone made it big on LinkedIn or any platform. That's how
Right.
it started. Okay? Also, like and comment regularly on posts. You post, but also like and comment. Now, in my case, a lot of people like, and if you comment on my posts, which is good, and probably you can start from there and start posting your own stuff,
Correct.
right? And very, very crucially, right, the last point, very crucially, uh, please don't initially immediately ask for jobs on LinkedIn, right? When you connect with the person, I've had people connecting with me, and 5 seconds later, I get a CV.
I've been, having this conversation with various of my juniors who tell me, okay, like I try to network with people, but I couldn't get a job. I just asked him, okay, like, what did you do? So
Yeah.
he said, okay, I added an HR, and I said, okay, hi, I'm looking for a job. Please find my CV attached. And they sent like this kind of a text to about like 10, 20 HRs, and they say, okay, they are not even replying to me. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, yeah,
great.
yeah. Yeah, so that doesn't work. That won't work, right? Because it's not the right way of approaching. But again, I see where they're coming from. They want to get jobs. So my advice would be: don't ask for jobs. Ask for coffee chats with people. Ask for advice. Tell them, what, this is the career I'm trying to choose. This is my background. This is what I think about the career. What do you think? Or this is the career I want to go. What skills do you think I should have? Can you tell me briefly? Or what do you think? What is it? I mean, this is what I'm looking for, relocating to this place, and you're in that place. Is it worth it coming over there? Uh, Ask for advice, right? Don't ask for jobs. And when you ask for advice, you learn a lot. You earn a lot of respect from the person because you say, hey, this is a different person coming to me. He's not asking for a job, right? What a relief. Maybe if I have time, I'll give him a few words of advice. And then start from there. And then I've had quite a few people reaching out to me asking for advice. And then eventually, you build a relationship with that person. You start communicating WhatsApp, things like that. And you advise that person proactively after some time because you want good to happen to that person. It takes time, right? It doesn't happen like this. It's not switch on, switch off.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, like, this is my last question, and after that, maybe there are two questions in the chat box. So,
Right.
as you know, we've been hearing that people have lost their jobs due to COVID, and this is news is just coming every now and then. So even in
Yeah.
May, about like 15 million people lost their jobs. So it's a lot of stressful environment out there. People are not getting jobs and they're getting fired, and some of are just getting half the salaries what they used to get. So what would be your advice to such people in the current scenario?
Yeah, these are very unique and very difficult times, right? I mean, even in the UAE, you find people losing jobs and not able to get back on their feet easily. And when you have rent and food and other expenses to pay, it's quite crushing, right? So I have talked to quite a few people in the last 15, 18 months who are in this situation. and they come to me for advice, and then they normally have options with them. And what I've seen, the options are, sir, I've got this job, but this is not the job that um, I want. It is far away from the job that I'm looking at. So should I take this job, or should I wait for another 6 months, or I don't know how long to get that job that I'm looking for? That's one kind of question. So I'll probably address it from that point of view, right? Because I think while there are jobs out there, but not the job you want, right? So you might want to become a consultant, but they're only openings for auditors and accountants, for example.
Right.
So what in that situation specifically, instead of me giving the broad advice, that specific situation, which I think is not that uncommon, is you have two options. You wait till it gets better, right? And then hopefully the job that you want comes along. Or you jump on the next best opportunity, which is whatever comes along, right? Now, the problem with waiting till it gets better is that you could wait 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, you don't know. And that time you're sitting at home sending out CVs, and very importantly, have zero experience during that time, right? Which is not good.
Right.
Whereas if you jump on the next best opportunity, whatever opportunity you think is, I mean, I'm not talking about, a chartered account getting into sales or admin work, of course not, right? I'm talking about a CA getting into audit or accounting work, right? So at least you get some experience. You'll get many things, right? You'll get some experience. You'll get connections for sure, right? Even if you're doing the work remotely, you'll get connections. You'll build a network. Very importantly, you will find out what you like and what you don't like, which you will not get by sitting at home not doing work. You only know what you're passionate about and what you're not passionate about by doing stuff, right? That was the case for me. That was the case for millions of others. And the fourth advantage by working is you slowly move to your target sector or target role by taking that job. So I would tell anyone, if you don't wait too long, unless of course you know for sure there's something coming down the road, which is very rare. Grab whatever opportunity comes along that will take you to the target in a few years' time, and leverage that to the maximum, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But suppose like just to just an add-on question to this. Suppose if someone is not getting a job and there are no opportunities, so what would you tell them? Okay, like
Right.
what should they do?
Okay. Yeah. Very good question. So yeah, and that's also quite common, of course. Probably that's more common than others, right? I would then say, of course, apart from looking for a job and sending out resumes, get a qualification or get some skills under your belt.
Right.
Very important. Now, what skill, what qualifications, up to you. If you want to get into wealth management or asset management, go for CFA. If you want to go into financial planning, financial analysis, financial control, CFO role, go for CA or CPA or ACCA. Right? If you want to go into investment banking or something like that, go to a master's in finance or master's in or an MBA. If you want to get into risk management, maybe do an FRM, right? So, and if you already have these qualifications, and what do? You get additional skills, financial modeling, data analysis, what I talked about earlier, right? There are lots of skills you can learn. And of course, build your soft skills. Very important, right? There are tons of books and resources out there. So I would not waste the time, is what I'm trying to say. Use the time productively, read a lot, listen to a lot of podcasts, and upskill. Because when the time comes and when the market picks up, as the market will pick up, the economy must pick up, right? It can't remain in a slump like this. We can't always be hiding in our houses scared of COVID all the time. It can't happen.
Right.
Vaccinations will go up, reopening will happen, industries will pick up, employment will pick up. When that happens, you'll be ready.
Right, exactly. So, and I don't have any more questions, but we have one question in the chat box. So
only one question, man. We've spoken for 1 hour. We only have one question. Come on, I was expecting more people, man. Come on, be interactive, guys. This is a place to showcase your communication skills and build them, right? Like we talked about.
Exactly, and you talked about like networking, how networking is important. So
correct. So shoot.
Exactly. So until others are just writing their questions, so there's a question from Anand. So he's asking like, first of all, he's saying like, okay, hi Vinod sir, you are the most valuable LinkedIn connection I have.
Thank you.
You inspire me. My question is, what are the major emerging areas, major sectors to look for in UAE for jobs for CAs, and what is the key skill that UAE expects from finance professionals?
Right. So UAE market is very different. It is not finance oriented. It's basically real estate, construction, retail, and trading, right? Trade and tourism. These are the biggest sectors in the UAE. Trade, tourism, real estate, retail, construction. So if you have experience or expertise in these areas as a chartered accountant, you work there, then much easier to work here, right? If you work in a real estate company, for example, or a construction company. Um, what are the major emerging sectors to come out? I won't say any emerging sector as such, because UAE is a small country, and like I said, these are sectors that are dominant in this here. Maybe one emerging sector, if you can call it that, would be fintech. So I see quite a few fintech startups setting up in Dubai in areas like what do you call on some online platforms regarding crowdfunding and robo advisory and things like that. And these are not massive employers. Don't get me wrong; they're not hiring hundreds of people, but there are some signs of fintechs, and the government is keen to promote that. Right? What is the key skill that UAE expects from finance professionals? Good question. I never thought about that way, but let me give a very valid answer. When you're working in India, you're working with Indians. When you're working in the UAE, you're working with about 100 other nationalities a lot of the
Right.
time, right? So it requires a big change in terms of your communication skills, in terms of your mindset, in terms of your cultural adjustment, right? You got to be able to work with different cultures, and that's not as easy as it sounds. So that is one skill, if you can call it a skill. I can't teach you that. I don't think any website exists where you can teach, but that is important. Adaptability, resilience, communication. I mean, if you can talk well in English, obviously everyone in the UAE here talks English. They talk Arabic, but English is far more popular and widespread. That helps a lot. So Anand, I hope I've answered your question and as much detail as possible.
Right.
Anyone else, guys?
Another thing,
Anybody?
yes, sir, thanks a lot. And any other questions,
Yeah.
like anything that you would like to ask apart from the questions that I've asked? Although I've covered, various topics, but still,
We
there
have
might be
Raj,
add-on
Ricky,
questions.
Meenu. Where are all these guys? Come on. Ankit Dang. I'm seeing
Komal,
names here, right? Komal,
Sneh, Srishti,
Arisha,
Steny,
Franco. I'm reading the names down. No one's responding to me, man. But Puneet.
right?
Come on, guys. Anyone else? We'll hang around for another minute. Oh,
So
someone's typing. Okay. Someone's
Raj is saying that
typing.
I'm tapping.
Okay. And then we'll call quits in about a couple of minutes, right, Puneet?
Right. It was supposed to be like 30, 45 minutes, but it's
Yeah, that's fine.
already an hour.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so we have one question from.
How to get funding for big projects or startup? That's a big topic, Ankit, and it is not the theme for today's discussion anyway. So I would not want to answer that now. We can take the discussion offline, right? If the opportunity arises, because today's discussion was career specific, right? Any other questions, guys?
So we have two more questions. So Ricky saying, greetings, sir. I would like to know some books that would help us in understanding finance.
Books that will help us in understanding finance. Okay, I'll post something on LinkedIn soon. Can one of you who asked the question please message me on LinkedIn or remind me or Instagram or something, and I'll promise to post something in the next couple of days on LinkedIn. Hi Vinod, that will join only now since I just came in after work. Is the meeting recorded? That's from Steny Philip. I know Steny Philip very well. Why are you late, Steny Philip, on a Sunday? I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's being recorded, Puneet, right?
Right,
And
it's
we
being
will
recorded,
share it on
and
our respective platforms.
right, we'll do that.
Cool. We'll do that.
And Raj, you were typing something. So, if you would like to come on audio, you can do that as well. Like if it's
Yeah.
a long question, rather
Do
than
ask
wasting
some
time.
relevant career specific questions, guys, please. Yeah. Happy to
Right,
answer those. Puneet and myself can answer that.
right.
Can they ask
Yeah,
audio questions?
yes, they can do that.
Okay, good. Right, boys, the floor is yours.
Right. So Raj, you can ask directly instead of typing.
I think you can unmute yourself and ask questions if you wish. Guys, don't be shy. No one is judging you, okay? I know this will be recorded, but don't worry, it won't be held against you anyway. So this is a good opportunity for you to connect and interact with people. Please use it. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Tenny Philip, I can hear you.
I'm not sure if you've covered this earlier, but how important, do you think, like networking is in today's world? And like, if so, I know networking is super important, but then again, like, how again can you network, like effectively, and like find the right connections?
Right. Excellent question. So networking is important. You know that already, Steny, yeah? And how can you find connections? Um, LinkedIn, of course, works. College is a fantastic place for developing connections. And you know that well, Steny. You have been involved in competitions in college, right? And that's a fantastic place to build connections with professors and with your students as well. And outside that, I mean, reach out to people in industries that you respect, people that you respect, industries that you want to get into, right? So could be a CIO or a CEO or a senior analyst, Tenny, right? Or a CFO in some industry, maybe in UAE, maybe outside. Reach out to them on LinkedIn saying, or by email saying, you know what, I want to know more about this roles or this industries. What are the dynamics? Can you please guide me or tell me or point me towards the right resources? You know, sometimes a lot of the time people will not reply, and that's fine. Okay, don't get discouraged. But somebody out of 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10 might reply to you, and then take it up and keep pursuing that, right? That's one very good way. I think I mentioned that before you joined. When you join some society like CFA Society, become a member of CA or CFA or whatever, you know, all these professional institutions, organizations, they have networking events. Of course, all of these are online now, but soon, hopefully, with vaccination, everything else, and reopening, it'll be offline as well, right? That's the best way because face to face, there's nothing like that beats face to face networking, right, Puneet? I
Right.
mean,
And there's just one more thing that I can add, like
yeah,
when people text, on LinkedIn, so rather than just starting off conversation, okay, like, hi, I want to ask this. So what you can do is you can go through the profile of that person and find out like what was the thing that you like the most about them. And you can say, okay, hi, like I just love this thing about you in your profile, and I was, just like would like to know more about it. And since I'm doing this is this, and this is so much relevant for me. So this kind of, these kind of questions are really, eye catching. So people find out, okay, so this person actually went through my profile and didn't just, send me a random question. So
yeah, yeah.
it increases your chances to answer,
That's a
to get your
very,
answer.
very important point. I forgot exactly. I mean, go through the profile, right? I've had people. This is really funny, but not really. I've had actually people messaging me on LinkedIn saying, "What do you do?" Okay. I think my profile is comprehensive and updated enough for people to make out what I'm doing or what I've done, right?
Right,
So anyway,
right.
yeah. Sreni, did I answer it comprehensively enough?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Vinod and Puneet. It was that really helped.
Pleasure.
You're welcome. So I guess we have a question from Raj.
Yeah.
My question is, sir, is there any fresher, uh, if any fresher wants to move to in Dubai
Yeah.
or in
Yeah.
any country, then is there any opportunities for freshers, like not having great qualifications, and how to approach?
So I think this person was talking about CA, right? Indian CA freshers, I think, right? Um, like, okay, let's talk about two things, right? If you're a chartered accountant from India, absolutely, the Gulf, a lot of opportunities here in industry, but also bigger opportunities with the big four, right? KPMG, PwC, Deloitte, um, and EY. They hire hundreds of candidates every year for the auditing, transaction support, and other departments. So yeah, definitely a lot of opportunities for CA freshers in the UAE and GCC. Um, do you need to have relevant experience? It helps, but they also hire at junior levels, right? You can join as an audit assistant or whatever and move your way up. Um, if not having great qualifications, then how to approach? Yeah, it becomes more difficult if you don't have relevant qualifications. I wouldn't say great qualifications, but relevant qualifications like CA or CFA or MBA or whatever, right? That of course, then of course that's where your networking skills become even more important, right? You go back to what you said. So if it's very simple, guys. If you lack somewhere, you got to make it up somewhere else, right? So if you lack in qualifications or experience or whatever, You got to make it up through somewhere else. And thankfully, there are platforms that enable you to do brilliant networking. Do that, please. Right?
Great. So I guess we've covered,
Yeah.
so many questions today, and it was really nice talking to you, and on a Sunday evening.
Guys,
And
I know we haven't, there are probably a few other questions as well, but we have already spoken for about, I think, nearly more than an hour.
right,
And
you can
it's,
contact us on Instagram, as I
yeah,
mentioned, both the profile IDs of my profile ID and also for Binod. So you can contact us on Instagram and also on LinkedIn. So
do
I
reach
hope,
out to me on LinkedIn as well. Happy to answer. I normally try and answer questions on LinkedIn and Instagram. So Puneet as well. Both of us can reply to you. Yeah. This will
right,
be recorded, it's being recorded and will be edited and uploaded on our respective platforms, websites
right,
soon. Yeah.
right. Okay. So thank you so much for joining, and I hope it was an insightful session for you. And thank you so much, Binod, for taking your time to discuss,
It's a
these.
pleasure, man. It
Right, right,
was very relevant questions, excellent questions actually, and good audience questions as well.
right,
And always happy to mentor, give back. So yeah, so keep smiling, guys.
right. Thank you so much, Thank you, everyone. And
Thank you. Thanks,
yeah,
Komal. Thank you, Anand.
right.
Thank you, Rajni.
Thank you, guys.
Bye. Take care.
Okay, bye. Take care.